welcome to the next episode of the Crispy Bit series. I'm here with Carlos. Carlos, can you please explain who you are and what you're known for?
Sure. So my name is Carlos, also known as MCD. I am a lover of the Hardstyles, lover of puppies, cute mofos, and someone who absolutely adores every style of music.
You are known to be the face of hardstyle in Australia, but I want to dig deeper. To be an MC, you need a strong public speaking, strong charismatic personality. Let's go back to your schooling. How were you in school with public speaking?
In school and public speaking, the funny thing is, it's the same then as it is now. I actually have a fear of public speaking.
You do?
So I think, yeah, I mean, even during my younger years, it was just more so. I just always had this fear, and I just couldn't do it. And it's kind of like that today, but I think now I've sort of grown, obviously with the emceeing, I've grown more used to it, and being able to talk to large crowds and even smaller crowds as well. That I've just kind of learned how to sort of process the emotions in terms of the fear, put that aside, and just realize that there's a bigger picture in terms of what my goals are and what I want to do.
Was there a point that changed? Was it maybe a school play or you learned an instrument or something that grew you out of your shell?
To be honest, no. I think music has always been a part of my life. Ever since I was young, in terms of how I was growing up, my mum was a singer of Motown R&B back in the day, and when she used to sing in pubs and clubs and stuff like that, she used to have me on the side in a pram when I was obviously like 1, 2, 3 years old, and I just always grown up around music from when I was a young age, that I just seemed drawn to music. As to be honest, I don't know what it was, but maybe it was an emotional thing or not. But yeah, I was just always drawn to music.
When was your first time emceeing on a stage?
First time I was emceeing on a stage, very good question. So the first time that I was emceeing on a stage, it was there used to be this program called MIRC back in the day, and it was a chat program where you're going to go into chat rooms and just talk to different people. A friend of mine that I'd known for a while was like, "Oh, we need an MC. Is anybody available?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do it. I've never done it before, ever." And it was for an R&B night, and put my hand up. It was in King's Cross back in 2001, 2002, somewhere around there. And yeah, I definitely remember that night clear as day, because all I did was use Tupac lyrics the whole night, and that was how I got by. And yeah, I think it's when MCs first start out, and I know I did. They use another style until they're comfortable with it, and then you start to develop your own style as your own personality evolves. And that's how, like for me, that's how I first started out in R&B and hip hop, and went on that for about maybe about 6, 7 years, and then yeah, got into hardstyle.
How old were you when you first started?
18.
18. Wow. So you were never from hardstyle at the get go. You were rapping R&B first, and then discovered hardstyle.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing was, when I was young, my brother used to listen to happy hardcore, and he used to get a raise, and he'd always bring the mixtapes home, and I'd always listen to them. And then when I got to about 13, 14, I'm like, I want to check it out. So then I started going to raves back in Sydney, back in the early days of when happy hardcore was like the main genre in Australia, and so I'd already had a love sort of for the faster side of dance music back then. And then, yeah, it all came to a head when I started doing hardstyle.
Obviously, when we first start, we're all quite bad at it. When was the point where you said to yourself, "Oh, I have a talent"?
To be honest, I don't think there was a point. It was more so when I realized that I could actually take it seriously. Was probably around the time when I was raving. Like, I was going out day and night, bender after bender, and going out to parties. And I was doing that while I was emceeing. at a very early age, and then I think it got to a point where it was like I had someone sit me down and go, look, if you really want to take this seriously, then you need to cut all that stuff out. And that was the point where I was like, all right, let's take this seriously. Let's see how far I can go. And then I think that was probably 2011, 2010. I haven't looked back since then.
Was that person a mentor to you, and have you had other mentors since?
He is a mentor, and to be honest, he's still in my life to this day. DJ Pulsar, he's always been one to look out for me, and always giving me the right talks at the right time. Always been there. So along with him and DJ Tommy, who's now Thomas Knight, we back in the day the Sydney racing was very very close knit. So you had a various amount of promoters in terms of you had Tommy, who used to run the Fantasia nights, as well as all the underground sort of raves. You had Pulsar, who was involved in the Asian side of things in terms of R&B, hip hop, and dance. And you had a couple of other promoters as well. And we pretty much everyone spoke to each other. So when it came to sort of rave nights and whatnot, you knew, okay, I'm going to do it on this night, I'm going to do it on this night. There was no real competitive. It was just everybody wanted everyone's parties to do well. So it just came down to that planning effect. So I was lucky to grow up in that era, and lucky to start out in terms of musically and emceeing in that era, because I got to experience a lot in terms of different styles of music, whether it be happy hardcore, whether it be hard dance, whether it be hardstyle, as it sort of hard dance evolved into hardstyle. But those guys I still work with them to this day. And then Sway as well, as I actually finally got to know him, and it's just gone from there.
When you started to take emceeing seriously, how did your family take it? Did your mom take it very well? And were they like, get a real job, or were they like, keep going and follow your dreams?
To be honest, I don't think they really knew.
Right.
Like, that's the thing. Until I actually took it seriously, and when things started to take off, it was a pretty challenging time for me.
Yeah.
I was definitely going through a lot personally. Just a bad relationship, and also my mother was diagnosed with cancer. So there was a period where I really had to I had to quit work and look after mum, almost full time. We shared it around my dad, my mum, and my dad and my sister and myself. But basically, it was about 2 years where I had to rely on emceeing. For me, emceeing was my outlet, because it's just again, it was a lot to process in terms of when you go through those personal struggles. But at the same time, you don't want to you need an outlet to be able to release all that emotion and tension and everything. And for me, music was that. When my parents finally found out, they were just like, "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" Like when things started to take off around that time, and then unfortunately, my mum passed away in 2007. And for me, again, music was that sort of fallback on, in terms of being able to release that emotion, release that everything that was built up. Because for me, I found it very hard to sort of do that with people. But when it came to music and emceeing, that was my release.
Have you developed your own support network now that encourages what you do and pushes you forward?
Definitely. To be honest, I've always had this support network. I've always been grateful that I've had such a great group of friends that they're all succeeding as I am. But again, for me, I've always been someone who's constantly fighting something, whether it's my own sort of inside voices or demons, and we just try to push along. But I know that when it comes down to it, I know I've got them there, and I know that if I need anything, that they'll come through. And it's sort of hard to sort of build that, again, because I'm such an introverted person, to be honest. I'm not such an extrovert that people see on stage. Is that when away from the stage, away from everything, I'm actually an introvert.
Is it a relief to you to be able to enter that character though, like being such a charismatic person on stage. You are known as one of the most charismatic MCs in hardstyle. Is it almost like putting on that Batman mask and just going, yeah, like let's do this, and then having the joy of also being introverted away from it?
Yeah, I think you summed it up very, very well. If anything, I'd probably say it's Deadpool, the mask I put on, because it just I'm just a completely different person. When I'm away from it, I'm very introverted. I'm very sort of closed off. I'm the type of person that if we're in a room full of people, and I'll only talk to the people that I know, unless people approach me, that sort of thing. And but on stage, the good thing about being on stage is that it forces me to, not so much forces me, but to come out of that shell. And for me, music has always been a connector. So whenever I MC, I'm looking at people in the crowd. I'm identifying with people in the crowd in terms of when people don't look like they're having a good time, or people are having a great time, and you share that sort of connection where you share that common euphoria. So yeah, like you said, it's once that mask goes on, it's probably a different thing.
When you do perform on stage, what's the biggest thing that kicks off your adrenaline? Is it seeing the joy in someone's face, or seeing how they're reacting to you, feeding off each other's energy, or is it just the crowd in general? What is it that gives you that click?
I think the thing that gives me the click is whoever I'm on stage with, right? Because last thing you want is to look at a stage where nobody looks like they're enjoying themselves, right? For me, I've always sort of been a champion of, if you see people having fun on stage, then it's an instant sort of it's contagious, right? So what I always like to say is, it doesn't matter what happens in the crowd as long as we're providing a vibe. That's what that matters, right? And I'll do that with every DJ that I perform with. Obviously, before even all that, it's like I'll also ask them, "Hey, do you want an MC?" Because some are MCing themselves, and if they do, great. Then that's what we do. But definitely a big believer of your vibe is contagious. And for me, once that sort of kicks off, then obviously looking into the crowd and identifying with certain people, or looking at certain people and just sort of trying to bring them up, if you need to.
Do you remember the feeling you had when you first got booked for an interstate gig? The feeling of just getting your first plane flight out of Sydney to another place to MC?
I do. The funny thing is, the very first interstate gig was with Pulsar, and it was actually Brisbane. It was the very first one. Um, I forget the name, something candy. I think it was Hard Candy or something like that, and it was at the Family, and it was, for me, it was just mind blowing. To be able to do what I love in another state was great. But I think the one that really sort of hit home was again Brisbane. It was PhD versus, I think it was Evolution at the time, and that's when they brought up Salty. It was Salty, Pulsar, and myself, and that was the night I was like, yeah, this is it. I know I deserve to be here and belong here.
That's great. We'll come back to the East Coast scene, but I also want you to think about and describe how you felt doing your first international trip. And where was
Yeah.
that for you?
So the first international trip was DEF CON, and that was back in 2011. Actually, no, it wasn't 2011. I think it was 2013, 14. And it was the white stage at DEF CON. And for me, like, already performing at DEF CON Australia was huge. When we started out in 2000 and I think it was 2009, around 2009, and when I got to host the Black Stage, and for me, hardcore has always been in my veins since day one. I've always had a love and appreciation for hardcore, so to be hosting the Black Stage at DEF CON 1 Australia was huge for me. And then it sort of built upon there in terms of the next year, Black, and then hosting Red, and then finally making the trip over to Netherlands, where seeing your name on a website saying that you're hosting a stage DEF CON 1, it's prestigious. It's something that DEF CON 1 is the mecca for all the harder styles. And for me, that was like, I'm finally here. So that for me, it was a rush of emotions. It was something I wish my mum could have seen because she was such a big part of my life. But for me, it was a celebration of everything I'd done, and not only that, but everyone that helped me get to that point. Because I know that there's no way I could have done this on my own.
Is there a feeling or any feeling in the world that even comes close to walking out on that stage and just seeing the crowd?
Doesn't matter, but for me, it doesn't matter how big the stage is. Whether there's 5 people, 50 people, 500 people, 5,000 people, 50,000. Right? Like when you go on that stage, it's a blessing. It's an honor to be there, and it's the same energy that I bring to every stage that I perform on, with every artist that I get to perform with, for every event that I'm at. It's not about the size of the stage. It's your energy shouldn't change depending on how many people are there, and that's all it comes down to. So, yep, there are definitely highlights. Don't get me wrong, but again, there are a lot of highlights. Whether it be at a smaller rave where it's more intimate, or whether it's at a big festival where it's just a sight to behold so many people. At the end of the day, the energy for me doesn't change depending on the people. It's just it will always be the same, and it's always this, I always expect the same amount of myself regardless of how many people are there.
Do you notice anything different between the crowds in Australia versus the Netherlands or anywhere else in the world? Little nuances that are different. Is one country more rowdy than the other? Is one more creative than the other?
There's probably three things that I would say to that. One is when it comes to Aussies, especially DJs, we can hold our own against anybody in the world, right? We have some of the most talented artists in Australia, and they deserve to be recognised more. The reason I say that is because I don't feel like Aussie DJs or Aussie artists, let's say Aussie artists, whether they're producers or DJs, I don't feel like they get the recognition they deserve, and the support they deserve, especially in a climate where we are now getting probably more internationals than we've ever gotten in Australia, and more events. I would like to see more support for Aussie DJs and Aussie artists. Back in even when they did Utopia, who used to sell out 10,000 person rave with only Aussies. Like, there's no reason we can't do that, and these guys deserve it. Whether it be Firelight, yeah, Anderex and Diesel overseas, but I put them in that group. Code Black, Tone Shifters, Audio Freak, Delete, rest in peace. Pulses, the Sways, the Tozers, all these guys. I would love to see an all Aussie lineup get the production and size that it deserves. So that's one. Two, in terms of the crowds, I think there is before. I wouldn't say before the internet, but before we weren't getting music as fast as we were. So let's cut back to probably about 10 years ago. Music that was being released over there wasn't sort of filtering through. Now you're getting a track the next day. So in terms of musical knowledge, we're pretty much on par with Netherlands in terms of the crowds, in terms of music coming through, in terms of education as well. That's probably the biggest change, is that before you'd have to wait 2, 3, 4 years before a track got released. Now it's released and everyone's got it. So by the time even for unreleased tracks as well, that's probably the craziest part. When artists come here, people already know it. People already know the kick roll patterns. People already know the vocals and everything. So it's really cool to see. In terms of the rowdiness of it all, yeah, I mean, Aussies are rowdy by definition. Let's be honest, but that's the energy that I feel is probably the best in the world, because they're loud, they dance, they move. They're not there just to stand still, and they enjoy the music, right? Hardstyle is ingrained into Australian culture. Everyone's got somebody that's been to a rave or to an event, and people can clearly see why people would rather go to raves and clubs. But again, when it comes to Aussies, there's no one better.
Since you've entered the world stage, have you had a lot of, I guess, trouble dealing with having all those eyes on you? whether it be through internet comments, either interactions with the crowd or just other MCs. I'm guessing in the music industry there is tall poppy syndrome almost. Have you faced that? And if you have, what do you do about it?
So, I mean, in terms of dealing with all eyes on me, I mean, for me, when you make a mistake, you're in the public eye, and people will roast you, absolutely roast you. I mean, I can take you back to DEF CON, I think it was probably 2015, 2016, where I hosted the Blue Stage, DEF CON Australia. And I introduced defense as disturb. What people don't realize is that prior to like me introducing him, somebody was talking to me about disturb. So yeah, that moment probably was a defining moment for me because I got a lot of comments, a lot of people messaging me saying, "Oh, you shouldn't fucking be there. You made this huge mistake." Tags, posts, everything, right? And it was a point where I just had to get off the internet because basically it just felt like the whole world was against me. And if it wasn't for Sound Rush and Adrenalize, the play and those guys coming to me and saying, "Don't worry about it. Everybody makes mistakes. We've all done it. People will forget about it." If it wasn't for them, I probably would have gone down a dark path, and I did. And it's something that's always been at the forefront of my mind. But again, it just comes down to the bigger picture and to be able to sort of grow that thick skin where now, if it happens, I wouldn't react the same. I'd be like, all right, cool, I made a mistake, I own it, rather than going to my shell and sort of trying to hide away from the world. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the all eyes on me thing, it's something that is present, because again, the internet. But I know that the way that I've dealt with things before and the way that I deal with things now is completely different.
Do you think that's a big gate to stopping other MCs coming up? I noticed that the Australian pool of MCs is quite small,
Yep.
compared to, say, European or even America. Is that what you think is the issue? Or if it isn't, what do you think is stopping people from following your path and becoming an MC?
It's a great question. I think, well, you've got MC Pez that's coming up. He's right there. He's definitely killing it right now, and kudos to him. But I think I've started to see a few more sort of pop up. In terms of why they don't follow the path, I'm not too sure I can answer that. But I've always been a supporter of more MCs. I want to see more MCs. If you've got the passion for it and you've got the right attitude towards it, I'll always support you. And to be honest, I have in the past as well. But again, it comes down to their personal endeavors and their personal drive. If they want to take it seriously, I'm more than happy to help them in any way. But again, you need to take it seriously because it's not something that is easy to do. And it's not something that's an overnight thing. For me, there was no blueprint. There was no, okay, well, this person's done it before, then I can sort of learn off their path or mentors or anything, right? So I had to learn my own way, had to create my own style, had to sort of make my own way through becoming an MC in Australia. The only sort of go-tos that I had to were like MC Storm and MC WizKid back in the day. And then as things started to go along, then obviously you had Ruffian, you had Deviate, and then obviously now Villain as well. So again, it's just, yeah, I'm sure there are some coming up, and if you guys are out there, please hit me up. I'm more than happy to help you. But again, you need to be serious about it, and you need to really have the determination and drive to see it through to the end and push through. Like any artist, doesn't matter if you're an MC, doesn't matter if you're a DJ or a producer, whatever. You need to take it seriously and be committed, because it will take up a lot of your time. It will take up a lot of your time. And that's something that you'll never get back.
I guess that breaks the notion of I guess even your younger self, where you thought that going out and just binge partying while MCing was enough. What does it actually take uh, prior to a show for you to be prepared and ready to go up on stage and MC.
Yeah.
So, like for example, we have Shock Events Hardstyle Carnival
Yep.
tomorrow. What are you going to do tonight and tomorrow morning to get prepared? Is there a routine you do, or what's the go?
Yeah, I mean the preparation lies in the artists that are playing. That's number one. It lies in knowing their music. It lies in being prepared in terms of if there's any new stuff that's come out. It lies in knowing the style that they play. For example, I mean you've got Ruler, who's one of the best at the moment. But the one thing I love about Ruler is it's never the same. He's not just going there to mix in, mix out of tracks. He's there to put on a show and deliver something special and sample and loop and drop tracks that you wouldn't expect to drop, that you wouldn't expect him to drop. And then you've got Sefa, who's the best, one of the best in the world at the moment. One of the leaders in Frenchcore. I think the challenge for me is that there are some tracks that haven't been released. So I have to go through obviously the internet and make sure that okay, cool, I'm on top of what they're playing. I know what the big tracks are. I know which ones they want to hype. So this starts like 2-3 weeks out. Also, social media again, making sure that everything's sort of scheduled ahead of time, so to be able to build that hype as well. As well as in terms of, I mean, this weekend's probably a big one for me as well in terms of doing tomorrow at Hardstyle Carnival and then flying back to Sydney to do HID and then flying to Melbourne to do Summer Gathering as well. So it's making sure that I've got what I need in place to be able to succeed at every event as well.
Did you ever think when you first started emceeing that hardstyle would become this big in Australia?
That's a very good question. I knew, well, I mean, to be honest, hardstyle's always been big, right? I think what's contributed to it becoming the scale that it is now is that a lot of people identify with it a lot more. A lot of people relate to it a lot more. I've got to say, I mean, TikTok has definitely contributed to that, right? I think people have sort of latched onto it in terms of rather than going to house or whatever, all those kind of events. They love the vibe that hardstyle events bring. And not only that, I mean, you look at the promoters, whether it be HSU, whether it be Masif, whether it be HI, whether it be Shock Events in Brisbane, whether it be Hard Candy in Melbourne, or No Sleep Entertainment, whether it be Project Hardstyle in Adelaide, whether it be Transition in Perth. Like, the one thing I love about Australia is that we now have promoters in each state almost that are spreading the gospel of hardstyle. And it's been growing in every city. And for me, I'm honoured to have been have had a front side seat to watch it all grow, and I couldn't be prouder of it.
I noticed that last year, especially, a lot of festivals were either closing doors or they were struggling. But HSU sold out almost every event and did very well. With that being said, though, last Halloween at Shock Events, you debuted as a DJ.
Yeah.
Was that a natural transition for you, or was that a bit out of your comfort zone to go from emceeing to being behind the decks?
Yeah. For me, it was, I think, during the time of COVID. Really wasn't much I could do, to be honest. But I wanted to keep that creativity drive going. And I'd always thought about, okay, well, what if I started DJing? How would that do? What if I started producing? How would that go? And then it just got to a point during COVID, after doing like the numerous Zoom meetings with friends, I'm just like, I can't do this. Like, I need to be creative. Went out and bought decks and then just self-taught how to mix and whatnot. And for me, that was the best thing because I wasn't just DJing hardstyle. It was also, I was playing sad boy melodic dubstep. I was playing drum and bass. I was playing happy hard. I was playing hardstyle. I was playing funk. I was playing R&B. For me, that's what sort of kept that creativity drive going. Because for me, music is the strength of an artist is keeping an open mind to different varieties of styles. of music, because it will influence you to eventually create your own identity. And that's, for me, what I wanted to do in terms of DJing and eventually producing, is to be able to sort of make sure that what I'm doing is putting forward the musical version of who I am. I do get to do that as an MC, but it's different when you do it musically, in terms of writing your own track. And for me, that was the goal. This year, I'm starting to tick that off in terms of my own tracks. And then, yeah, the end goal will be the live act, which will debut, I think, is September, October. Will just be my own creations, my own tracks, and yeah, there will be more to come on that, but that's all I can say at the moment.
Was it a refreshing process for you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I felt like I was starting out on the journey again. That was like, for me, it's a hard road, but it's the best road. Like, when you first start doing something and you start discovering things, you start finding out things, you feel like you're starting the journey. For me, it felt like I was starting the journey all over again. And I'm at that point where right now, I'm loving everything that's happening. I'm loving everything that's going on. One of the questions I did get is that, does it take away from emceeing? And I said, no. If anything, it adds to it, because I'm playing these different styles of music. It allows me to be able to experiment in some of these different styles of delivery and whatnot. So yeah, definitely, it's definitely refreshing, because you feel like you're starting out all over again.
What do you think the kind of the status of hardstyle is in Australia? Are we more geared towards a particular subgenre, or do we just love everything?
I think right now, where we currently stand, is that we, again, with technology, we're able to get whatever from happens in Europe the same day almost. With TikTok, with Instagram, with Facebook, that delay in terms of what comes over from Europe to here, or from the US to here, or whatever, there's no delay. We get it instantly. So then we start to follow what's trending. And we start to follow what's hot, and we start, sorry, not follow, but we start to find out what's hot in Europe and what's cool. With hardstyle today in Australia, there is definitely a big push towards the raw side of things and up-tempo side of things. And that's fine. But there needs to be a balance. There definitely needs to be a balance. The reason why hardstyle works so well is because of that balance between euphoric, between raw, euphoric, between extra raw. If we go into the harder styles, between hardcore, between up tempo, there is a perfect balance, and it's that synergy which brings everything up. And I forgot happy hardcore, of course. But yeah, I think the reason why it's so strong is because it's not people just don't like one thing. They like a variety of things. Some people like euphoric and happy hardcore and raw euphoric. Some people like extra raw, up tempo and hardcore. But the good thing about the raves that we've got on now is that there's something for everyone.
Where do you think you are in your own journey? Do you think you are at the prime of your career as an MC, or do you think there's a lot more for you to go?
There's definitely a lot more for me to go. I feel as though I've had to build myself up again. I was going through some things post 2016, 15, 16, and I really had to build myself up again. Those demons are still at play, I'm not going to lie. But I'm slowly learning how to sort of deal with them and properly address them. And that's something that will continue to go on. But it has been a hindrance. It has been sort of a distraction. It hasn't been sort of a distraction. It has been a distraction. But I know what my goals are and what I want to set out to do, and they're not even close to being reached. So I know I've got a long road ahead of me. It's just maintaining the focus on those goals that will keep me on the straight and narrow, I hope.
If you had to thank someone for helping you be the person you are today, who would that be, or who would they be?
It would definitely. I would again. I go back to Pulsar. He's been my day one rock. He's someone that has seen me go through the best and the worst. Throughout as long as I've known him. Uh, Definitely Sway as well. His optimism is actually what drives me as well. Everybody knows that he's just a fun, happy, loving, peaceful guy that just adores his music. And he's part of the reason I get my inspiration, as well as the connections that I made in terms of the Andes, Hectic and Avox, their support as well, and also my dad as well. The fact that he was able to keep things together when Mum passed away was we kind of lent on each other, and again we got through it, and we're doing okay now. So yeah, definitely Pulse this way. Someone's going to kill me for leaving them out. I know they will. But yeah, definitely Pulsar and Sway have probably been the biggest two.
If you had a tip for a young MC, what would it be? Would it be something to focus on their mental health, or stick to that drive, or figure your shit out before you commit to it? What would it be?
If there are any budding MCs out there, what I will say is that lean into your emotion, and use that as inspiration in terms of the lyrics that you write. And there's two different things here, right? You can either be an MC that wants to host parties, or you can be a vocalist that writes rhymes and does the vocals on tracks, or you can do both. As an MC, you definitely need to study, like know how to talk, know how to deliver, know how to know the different styles of music, know what music is out there. In terms of a vocalist, again, like I said before, lean into the emotion as creativity, and don't be afraid to be yourself. Ultimately, you need to be authentic when it comes to this sort of thing. And I'm a firm believer that when it comes to music, the best music is the relatable music. Is knowing that, yeah, you're doing this, but you're letting yourself be vulnerable to be able to talk about your experiences so people can relate to it and know that that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that's all it comes down to. But yeah, again, it just comes down to commitment.
Do you have any upcoming projects you'd like to promote?
Yeah, so obviously we still got Massive, my number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 every Friday in Sydney. Proud of what the boys have been doing there, and we're only just going on the up and up, which is great. Again, live DJ set earmarked for September, November, so just before the summer hits. So doing well on that. Europe is in July, which is going to be exciting as well. Just announced for Drop Zone, and there'll be a few more that'll be announced. What else? HSU parties this weekend, obviously Shock and everything. So definitely looking forward to Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne as well with the Hard Candy, HSU, and Shock fam. That's pretty much it, man. I mean, for me, I'm actually taking my first holiday ever that I can remember. So definitely looking forward to that, and I think that's definitely going to be good for me because I haven't had a holiday in about maybe 7, 8 years.
Wow.
It's been that long. Like, yes, I've gone overseas, but has it been a break? Not really, because still had gigs, still had to prep, still had to go out and work, and not work, but do gigs. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that holiday.
That's awesome. On the Crispy Bit series, each guest needs to call out the next person, and if they refuse to come to the Crispy Bit series, we put them on a wall of shame, which is an old frying pan, and
I love it.
yeah, we call that the oil pan of shame, and they stay there until they accept our offer and come and do the interview. Do you have anyone in mind or any people in mind that you'd like to call out?
So if we're talking about Australia, there's only one person I'm going to put up there. It's going to be Sway. He's definitely, I know he's a fountain of knowledge, and it would definitely be cool to see someone sit down with him. And again, that's why I appreciate you and thank you for inviting me on. And thank you, Andy, for nominating me. Thank you, Avox. But I know he'd be a good guest for you, and you'd get the best out of him, and it would definitely be a good chat. In Brisbane, I would say Justin Lee. The reason is that Justin is definitely like a little brother to me, but I feel as though I'm proud of the person that he's become. I know he's had a very winding road, so to speak, but he has been one of the pillars, just like Andy Vo, just like Hectic. He has been one of the pillars when it comes to hardstyle in Brisbane for as long as I can remember. So he'd definitely be a good guest to have on. So I'm nominating Justin Lee, Brisbane. Otherwise, outside of Brisbane, Sway.
Awesome. We'll see how that goes. I was chasing him with a camera the other day. But that being said, thank you so much.
Thank you, mate.
And I look forward to you tomorrow.
Tomorrow, let's get it.